Oh, some of the great training performances of Robbie Laing in recent years. It goes back a lot further than that, the famous Laing family. And Robbie, he rewrote the book on how to train horses so many times. His unorthodox methods and his ability to get horses to peak in the biggest races at the most important times. And not just stayers, from jumpers to 2-year-olds, Robbie could do it all. And he was a lovable rogue, he was a larrikin, and he did things his way. And I think he shocked the entire racing industry when the news came through on the weekend of Robbie's sad passing. And I am so thankful and grateful that his lovely daughter Evie and other family members are here today to pay tribute. And Evie, good morning to you and to everyone that's in the studio. I'm very honoured that you've taken the time to come here and talk about your dad in such difficult times. How are you and everyone holding up at the moment?
I mean, I think that we'll just be in shock forever. It's just seriously rocked our family and the racing world, and but I did want to come into studio because I just want to keep talking about my dad forever, and I already loved doing that anyway, so to have a platform to be able to speak about my dad is something that's very special.
And when I messaged you last night, because, you know, at times like this, different people handle it different ways, and I didn't want to put any pressure, but I said, look, would love to get you on if you feel up to it. And you said exactly that. You said, I'm so happy to come on and speak about him, the incredible human he was, and how much he'll be missed.
Yeah.
I think your dad would be very proud of you right now as well.
I know, I feel like he'd be like, come on, Evie, just smile, be happy. But I think he would also be, you know, loving this attention. So, yeah, me and my dad we were really close, and especially with me being sort of in the racing industry now, and when I went to work for Kieran Ma for a couple months last year, and I was really worried to tell him. And then he heard it off someone else and he said, so I hear you're going to work for Kieran. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, Dad, are you mad? And he said, I'm not mad, just learn from them and bring it over to us. Yeah. I was like, okay, sounds good. Sorry, Kieran. But I didn't need to bring anything over to Dad because he knew it all and he was a genius.
I was going to say, it's hard to put it into words, but what did your dad mean to you?
The world. I think that we really saw each other, and the way he went about things was obviously very different, and some people might not have understood that, but I just loved him, and any chance I got to say who my dad was, I was always filled with so much appreciation for him because I just love him. And I think when you know, are growing up and some people don't know what their dad's profession is, I think that I remember in year 2 when we were lining up and our teacher said, now guys, for the Father's Day assembly, we're going to get one of your dads in this classroom. And we were looking around like, whose dad could it be? And then I remember saying to my friend, I think it's Mr. Shield, the bloody science teacher. and then she showed my dad and I was like, oh, him, okay. And then when that was happening, he had said to the teachers, now, when I come in, I want you to play the Serpentine race call because at the end it says Robbie Laing, take a bow. So I think he was also very proud of his work, and I think that's when I first knew, my dad might be a bit of a big deal.
I was going to ask, what was it like growing up with him as a horse trainer? And you get the highs, you get the lows as well. But did you have an idea about what he was doing?
Yeah, I think that we were pretty lucky that my mum also comes from a harness racing family. So we had it on both sides, a big racing family. And so we always grew up with that. I know that not everyone gets that experience or might not be interested, but every single weekend we'd be at the races. Me and Mum share the same birthday, so we were down at Warrnambool in May, had memories in Warrnambool and everywhere. Horses were our life, and we were so lucky to have that visibility every day because we were in it, and life was a bloody movie.
Have you got a favourite Robbie Laing winner? Was it a lot of them were maybe when you were little, like Serpentine and the like?
I don't know if I can really remember the Serpentine one, but definitely Roman Arch winning the Australian Cup. I think I would have been 3 years old, and I remember this so clearly that when he won and everyone was screaming around me and I was hiding under the seats because I thought everyone was angry. And then, I think everyone was like, no, we're all happy. And I think things like that. I mean, on the day that Polanski won, we actually had a babysitter because I think it was too stressful for Mum. We were all walking on eggshells that week, and our babysitter had this video of us screaming and crying on the floor. And then Mum said to our babysitter, can you please meet me at Chadstone? We're taking the girls to Crown. So we had a big dinner there with, all the owners and Hugh Bowman, and we got to meet his beautiful wife, Christine. And it's just people like that and the different experiences that we've had with those sort of things. I
remember the build up to that derby, and Robbie was just so confident. The horse was never getting beaten. You might have been a bit young, but could you sense that? Was he talking about that in the week in the build up? Yeah,
I think that, as I said, I think we just had to walk on eggshells, and it was just, Polanski was his baby, and everything that he was doing, it was just a real preparation, and he bloody succeeded.
I used to love getting Robbie, especially in the studio, and having a chat to him on the phone, because I have never come across anyone in the racing industry who has the encyclopedic knowledge that your dad had of racing. Not just his horses, but results and the breeding. And he would just go back and I think I said to him in the last, we need to bottle your brain because of the information that you have stored in there about the history of racing as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially at the track where I'd spend most of my Mondays, more recently. And Dad would fill people in about their horses, and they go, how do you know that? And Dad was like, how didn't you know? I was obviously running Dad's Instagram page, and I think it's just been so good because, for the past 6 to 12 months, my job has been finding different stories and talking to him about things. And I was doing something on Instagram on the story, and I said, Dad, who was your favourite horse? And he said, Tobin Bronze. And I was like, what? I looked up Tobin Bronze. It was a painting of the horse. It wasn't. He's obviously from the 60s, and Dad loved those times back then in Epsom, and he got to be alongside Tommy Woodcock in the tie-ups and different memories like that. So it's just amazing.
You put up, I didn't realise you were running his dad's Instagram. I knew someone was, not Robbie.
Couldn't have been him. I've got a bit more grammar and punctuation.
A couple of amazing photos just recently.
Yeah.
He was ripped.
I know.
As a young man.
I know. So this was literally last week that I went over to my Nana and Pa's, and I actually signed up to Ancestry.com 2 weeks ago. So I was trying to get all the photos out, and we were going through those, and I was like, Dad. And that was back when he was,
He would have loved it, I imagine. He would have loved you bringing out all the old photos and telling the stories.
Yeah.
You mentioned your Nan and Pop. How are they?
So my pa, Eddie Laing, who's obviously a trainer as well, and he's 95. On the day that we found out, my pa's actually been in hospital with his own health problems, but his mind is as active as anything, and my brothers had to smuggle him out. So sorry if the hospital's looking for him, but he's okay. Nana's a bit confused, but it's just everyone's processing it at their own speed, and pa's absolutely devastated. He just was so proud of Dad, and I think that Dad definitely knew that deep down, even if Pa couldn't get the words out. But he loved his son so much.
Chatting with Evie Laing, daughter of Robbie, and the other thing I loved about your dad was that the resilience that he had, and the fact that he was willing to put his hand up and own things. And I remember when, he was bankrupt and he couldn't train, and then he came into the studio and we had a chat when he was returning. He goes, I've only got myself to blame. He said, I'm a horse trainer. I'm not an accountant. And he goes, I've got to be smarter about the way we do things moving forward. There was no trying to pass the buck. It was all about accountability.
Definitely.
And I think that's what he stood for as well. And you would have been extremely proud, all of you, about the way he was able to build himself back. And
exactly.
The horses were running so well.
Yeah, they were. And even in that time, he didn't stop. He was still trying to help people out and just keep that, I guess, routine. And me and Dad actually lived together in a couple of years of that time. And
What was that like?
I mean, I think he didn't really realise what it was like living with a teenage girl because he got to avoid all that previously. But, I mean, in the morning he'd go to the track and then come back to wake me up and would make me Vegemite and smashed avocado on toast and have a Milo and off we'd go. But even in that time, I think he was more resilient than anyone. And any time that people said to him, Robbie, how are you going? Like, this must be really hard. And he would just always say, I could have it so much worse. I could have a serious illness. So I think that even though it was a really tough time for him, he knew that things would get better. And I think that's why we were always so hopeful and resilient of everything, because that's the way he went about everything. I mean, I even remember his ability to just make people happy. If you saw a serious person at the track, he'd speak to them or say a smart comment and then they'd smile straight away. And you could feel the seriousness just completely leave everyone's system. And at Pakenham quite recently, with obviously sadly Mike Moroney passing away, and Glenn Thompson was sitting down, and Dad walked over to him and Glenn just looked so upset, and Dad said, "It's all right, Glenn," and just probably made a joke. But his ability to lift people up, I mean, that resilience, as you said, Michael, I remember living in Narnagoon and I scraped my back against the wall and he said, "Is the wall okay?" It's just stuff like that you would realise that, the little things just don't matter at all.
He had a big heart, didn't he?
He had a big heart. He really did.
On Saturday, were you at the races on Saturday?
At Mornington?
You were at Mornington.
No, not
at Flemington.
Not at Flemington, but as I said on Instagram, I didn't make it that day, but he was there, and I was screaming in the kitchen watching it on my phone because this was such a big comeback, and especially the ownership of Kevin and Colleen Bamford, who have been amazing supporters. And I made sure I called Dad an hour after, because I know that after the races he just goes into the owners and trainers room and watches the replay hundreds of times. So I made sure I just waited a bit and then told him how exciting it was, and we were so excited for what was next for the horse, and I'm still excited to sort of see what will happen with him. So yeah.
Well, it was a very Robbie Laing run, wasn't it?
It was.
50-1, almost pulling off the upset. And I thought John Maloney spoke beautifully yesterday about him with the guys, and how he said, I spoke to Robbie and said, "Gee, your horse has trialled well." And he said, "He's ready to go."
Yeah.
He was expecting that type of performance on the weekend. And in all the tragedy of everything that's occurred in the last couple of days, I think you'd be pretty happy to know that he would have gone to bed a happy man that night about the last runner that he ended up saddling up and performing so well.
Definitely, no, very happy. And yeah, John Maloney and so many people have said so many beautiful words. I was on the phone to Pat Carey yesterday because, as we know, they were the comedian trainers. So everyone's just in shock. And with, the things that Dad thought, I remember him saying that all these trainers would cry after their races, and I remember he said that he kept composed after Polanski won the Derby and looked around to the other trainers and said, "Well, that was very clinical." So he just had a way of words. He was just incredible.
I've got Evie Laing in the studio. We'll take a quick break. There's a lot of SMSs coming. I'm going to read a few of those out, and I'll ask about if you've even thought about the next steps now. And I know there's a lot of people who want to pay their respects and farewell Robbie. We'll talk about that after the break. Lord of the Sky, another great example of your dad's genius as a trainer. And I think that horse had a very special place in his heart. And we were just talking during the ad break. He's come back as well.
He's come back. So actually Peter Foster and Dad had brought him back. So he actually, I don't know if he's even arrived back in Melbourne yet, but I was keeping up to date with on Bloodstock, seeing the bids go up, and I thought, far out, hopefully I can try buy him if Dad can't. So yeah, we had amazing memories with Lord of the Sky. I mean, being at the Royal Randwick. We were with the Price girls, who we were pretty close with. I was similar age to one of Mick's daughters, and we grew up riding together, and they had Lankan Rupee, so we were expecting that maybe Lankan would pull through. And I said to Dad, I remember that day, I said, where do you think Lordy will come? And he said, oh, top 8. And bloody Chautauqua came in and nipped him there. But it just goes to show Dad was pretty cool, calm and collected with that. And what an amazing race and times we have with Lord of the Sky. So hopefully it can be reunited with him shortly.
Well, exactly. Just on the horses, have you worked out what the future holds for those? And I mean, there's a lot of Lord of the Sky. I know threads that run through.
Yes.
A lot of what Robbie had. So what's the next step?
Yeah, so that's something that my brother Jack and my other brothers have been helping with. So just sort of moving horses around, and I think this is a bit of a call out to see if we do have quite a few mares, empty mares, one's in foal, so we're trying to work out what to do with them. There's some that we will just give away, and then others that I'm sure people can buy. But if anyone wants to reach out, I think that obviously people go through things differently, but if people are wanting to give me space, please don't. Just text me. And if anyone wants to reach out and discuss that with horses, I can assist with that. My brother Jack can help with that. And we can get these ones relocated, because Dad just loved his broom mares, but there's always been way too many. So we need to track them down and get that sorted.
And I know just by the SMSs, I'm going to read these all out in a moment, there are so many people that have great memories of your dad and have come in contact with him and will want to farewell and pay respects. Have you worked out what the funeral will be and when? Yeah,
so we've been in touch with a man, John Fowler from Tobin Brother Funerals, who's looked after a lot of racing funerals. So we're thinking potentially not this week, the next. So we don't have exact dates or times, but I think that might be firmed up today. So no matter what that is, I think we'll all know at the same time. We're thinking Cranbourne Turf Club. I'm not entirely sure. Could be next Wednesday, but it will be a public sort of send-off or wake, and then we might have just a private funeral with the close family.
We'll keep everyone updated.
Exactly.
And we'll, as we've done with Mike Moroney's and other services, we'll play that on RSN as well for those who are unable to get there. There's a lot of lovers, you'd imagine. This is a lovely text message. So sad to lose my wonderful son-in-law, Robbie Laing. Much love, Frank Cavallaro. So
So that's Mum's dad, and he's in Mildura. He's a harness trainer, and Dad would always call me and say, I've spoken to Frank. I'm like, really? He just always was calling people, and I think that's what's just the worst part of it, is that he wasn't, if I didn't pick up, he'd keep calling. So he just didn't give up with anything, and that included calling. So I'm waiting to get 10 missed calls from him just to check in, and I'm glad that we always made it a thing that we said love you on the end of our calls. I just, please call me.
There's a lot of SMSs here. What a beautiful, brave young lady Evie is to be able to do this for her dad. Huge respect to her. RSN for the wonderful stories of Robbie. Very emotional, touching interview, Blue Eyes. This is one strong girl. Condolences to Robbie's family. Just texting to say what an amazing, wonderful young woman Evie is, talking so beautifully about her dad, Robbie. It's so inspiring. Sympathy to all the Laing family. Loved having a chat to Robbie at Karen Beach. That's from Jared. Another one here saying, the year Robbie won the Grand Annual with Sir Pentire, he turned up in the morning after 5:30am, a bit seedy as you could imagine, looking for a coffee truck. I was the only one there, so I was in awe when he stood with me chatting about his amazing win and anything about horses. I was instantly taken by his devilish grin. He spoke to me every time we crossed paths from that day onward. That's Mark, boy from the Bull. That's a lovely memory there. Another one here saying, I was one of the lucky ones. I've known Robbie Laing and his father and his family since I was a kid. He was not just a genius with horses, but he had a smile on his face. Every day you see him, he would make you laugh, and he was always happy and had the most amazing stories, and a very funny man through all the good and the tough times may rest in peace. That's from Gregory Michael Hall. We'll miss you, mate, but never forgotten, RIP. There's a lot more of them that are coming through here as well. So you all know it. He was so loved and respected by everyone in the racing industry. And I thank you for giving us some of your precious time and sharing what Dad meant to you, and for all of you who are in the studio here. I know, as you say, everyone deals with it differently, but hopefully it helps by talking about what a great man he was and the love that everyone has for him.
Absolutely.
Evie, you're a star, as are all of you that have come in today. Thank you for letting us tell a bit more of the story, and we'll continue to do so in the build-up to the funeral.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks so much.
Good luck with everything. Thank you, guys.